Welcome, folks. Welcome, welcome. We're glad to have y'all here today. Whether you're joining us on Zoom or joining us on Facebook on the live stream, we're glad to have you with us. My name's Katie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a core member of Community Ready Corps Allies and Accomplices, or CRCA for short. And we'd love to see who y'all are, who's joining us today. As you arrive, if you could please introduce yourself in the chat with your name, pronouns, location, and if you're a member of an organization. Your name, pronouns, location, and if you're a member of an organization. Yep, make sure your chat is to everyone so everyone can see. Right on, glad to have y'all with us. Right on, good to see some names that are familiar to me. Awesome. Seeing some folks, a lot of folks in the Bay. Great to have y'all here. Seattle, love it. Let's see, San Diego, Colorado, right on. Michigan, welcome. Let's see, the chat is blowing up. Let me see here. Nice, Illinois, Peoria, welcome. Some more Michigan, some more Washington, right on. Wow, okay, there's a lot of y'all here. Beautiful. Glad to see folks from all over. After you introduce yourself in the chat with your name, pronouns, location, and if you're a member of an organization, please then send a direct message to host and panelists. Toggle to make that selection of hosts and panelists in the chat on the blue bar with the arrow on it. Please send that direct message to hosts and panelists with any access needs you may have, including whether your access needs are met. And if you could do that with access in all caps in your message, so it stands out to us, that would be really great. And please send a direct message to hosts and panelists with any access needs as they arise throughout the webinar today. Awesome. Cool. As y'all are introducing yourselves, we're gonna start by going through some meeting norms. In CRCA, we begin all of our meetings and our events with our meeting norms. This is because CRC teaches us that the how we do things is often more important than the what. It's in the how we act and treat each other where harm is often caused. So we establish at the beginning of every meeting and event how we are going to treat each other in this space. After reading through the meeting norms, we will ask each of you if you are willing to agree to abide by these norms today. So I'm going to go ahead and read those off. Go back. Zoom, please introduce yourself as you arrive with your names, your pronouns, where you're zooming in from, and if you're a member of an organization. When using the chat, please be sure to select everyone so everyone can see. Access is love. Thank you, Disability Visibility Project. We know that every person has essential skills, knowledge, resources, and talents to bring to this struggle. For this reason, we strive to make CRCA spaces as accessible as possible. Please send a chat message directly to host and panelists to let us know if your access needs are met or about any access needs you have with access in all caps. Please continue sending a chat message directly to host and panelists with access in all caps as needs arise, followed by the barrier access need. CRCA volunteers commit to address those issues to the best of our ability. Sober space. All CRCA-led spaces are sober spaces. We ask folks to arrive sober and refrain from bringing drugs or alcohol into the virtual space. This is a security issue and an accessibility issue for CRCA. Respect each other. No hate speech, harassment, or abuse will be tolerated in this space. We uphold CRC's principle that we all have the right, the duty, and the obligation to claim self-defense as a human right. Move up, move back. We ask folks to be mindful of how much space you're taking up and how much you're actively participating. If you've shared a lot already in the chat, focus on listening. If you haven't spoken up yet, consider pushing yourself to share some thoughts. Practice education. We honor and respect the knowledge and wisdom of the people who have been most directly impacted by white supremacy and anti-Blackness. We assume we all have something to learn from each other as well. Practice organization. Remember that we need each other to win, and we can't organize people we don't love. Practice contribution. This is a space to practice contribution over competition and control. We don't puff ourselves up, we build each other up. Practice intervention. Each of us are responsible for proactively working to prevent and counter the persistent reestablishment of white supremacy. Practice divestment. All white wealth is stolen wealth. Divestment is a healing and restoring practice that benefits us as much as it benefits the folks we divest to. We commit to being transparent about what we have, why we have it, and what we are doing with it. Brave space. We embrace discomfort and principled struggle as pathways to dismantling white supremacy. We are willing to be transformed in the service of the work. We know that mistakes are inevitable, growth is always possible. Direct feedback is a gift. In CRCA, we combat liberalism. We put things on the table rather than beat around the bush. We strive for clarity in our communication and value principled direct feedback and criticism for its relationship building potential. You can reach us anytime at crcaainfo@gmail.com. We'll also have a feedback form that will ask that you please take a few minutes to fill out at the very end of the webinar today. And finally, speak from your own experience. We're all here because we are struggling against white supremacy from the structural position of whiteness. This does not mean we all inhabit this structural position in the same way. Please be mindful of tendencies to universalize our experiences, to claim to speak for an entire identity-based group instead of for ourselves as individuals, or to speak on experiences we've never actually had. We strive to name and own power and privilege dynamics when they surface in our group discussions, and to be transparent and politically conscious about where our experiences come from. I'm going to ask folks, if you're down to agree to these meeting norms for our webinar today, please type agree into the chat. Seeing a flood of agrees with varying caps lock use. Love it. Right on. Thanks, y'all. Also saw some questions that I can respond to right now in terms of the meeting norms and the availability. One is that we don't share slides, so these slides will not be shared afterward. But we do have a link to the meeting norms that the folks who are on the back end monitoring the chat can go ahead and put a link to these meeting norms in the chat. Because these are CRC material, we do ask that if you use these in any other space, that CRC gets the credit. And please email us to let us know if that's going to be happening. Right on. Great. So a little more housekeeping before we get into the content. Communicating during the webinar. We are using auto captioning in Zoom that should be legible to all participants. It is auto captioning in Zoom, so it's going to have errors. Bear with us. On your toolbar, there should be a button that says live transcript with the letters CC. Click on that button and select show subtitles. If you are unable to see the auto captions, please let us know by sending a message to host and panelists. We will have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end of today's webinar, so please use the Q&A function if you have questions. The Q&A function should appear in your toolbar as an icon of two speech bubbles with the letters Q and A. We will get to as many questions as possible, either in the Q&A window or during Q&A time at the end of the webinar. We'll also be asking some questions of y'all during the webinar. Please share your responses in the chat. In the chat window, be sure to check to be sure it says send to everyone. To change it, you can click on the blue text and select everyone. Right on. And if you just joined us as I was going through the meeting norms, we'll go ahead and put in the chat again. Please introduce yourself, your name, pronouns, location. If you're a member of an organization, please also be sure to contact us directly, host and panelists, with any access needs that you may have as the webinar goes on. Of course, as I started talking, my throat got a little dry, so I'm going to take a drink of water while y'all do that. Right on. So I will be one of your presenters today. Again, my name's Katie. I use she, her pronouns. Nicole will be another presenter who you will see in a little bit. We also have an awesome team on the back end who's taking care of our tech and chat needs and access needs today. That team is Megan, Amanda, Kristen, and Nikki. You will see them engaging in the chat and responding to the chat as we go along today. All right, so who are we? Why are we doing this webinar? As you may already know, CRCA, or Community Ready Corps Allies and Accomplices, CRCA for short, organizes white people to practice the 5 methods to divest of white power and weaponize white privilege. But we can't talk about CRCA without making clear that we were created by and are led by Community Ready Corps, or CRC for short. CRC is a Black liberation organization that is actively working on the ground in all disenfranchised communities, and in particular in the Black community, to build and support self-determination in 9 areas through their Black solidarity process and path to action. We'll hear more directly from CRC themselves at the end of today's webinar, and you can read more about them by going to their website, blacksolidarity.org. Highly encourage y'all to check it out. They have a very thorough and clear strategy of change that they outline on their website. CRC has tasked us, CRCA, with 2 purposes. 1, organizing other white people to fight white supremacy, and 2, to support Black self-determination. So because CRC has explicitly asked this of us, all the content that we facilitate centers whiteness and is aimed at white people. So we want to reiterate, because CRC teaches us that repetition is critical to understanding. CRC organizes in order to build Black self-determination, which they describe as the political force that can ultimately end the centuries-long dominant system of white supremacy. By definition, organizing for Black self-determination is not dependent upon white people. Strategically, however, CRC has made the assessment that some engagement with the white community is necessary to achieve this objective. So CRC devised these 5 methods that you see on your screen right now to divest of white power and weaponize white privilege as a set of protocols and parameters to structure their political relationship with white people in a way that does not compromise their commitment to Black self-determination. CRC and many of their allies consent to political engagement with white people only through these protocols. And these methods are education, organization, contribution, not control, intervention, and divestment. We'll dive more deeply into each method at the end of today's webinar when we get into the what we can do to win part. So let's start also by grounding in our organization's history in the anti-fascist movement. You may recall that the alt-right or fascist, white nationalists, however you want to brand them, their movement got bigger and bolder in 2017 after the election of Donald Trump. How many of y'all recall 2017 in that way for the growth of the white nationalist movement? 2017 was the year that white supremacists marched with torches in Charlottesville, Virginia, and one of them drove at full speed into a crowd of anti-fascist protesters, killing Heather Heyer. That happened 5 years ago. Seems like a lot longer ago now with the pandemic, but that was 5 years ago. Yeah, exactly. The Bay Area was also a target of the fascists, particularly at and around the UC Berkeley campus. In the 60s, Berkeley was at the center of the free speech movement, and the fascists attempted to exploit that concept and spew their hateful, violent, and racist ideas. Right-wing speakers were given platforms at the campus like Ann Coulter, and groups like the Proud Boys descended into the Bay Area. But of course, the Bay Area wasn't having any of that shit. And CRC played a critical role, a critical leadership role that year in the Bay Area to counter the growth of the white nationalist movement. So we want to describe that a bit more. What do we mean by that? Well, one critical leadership role that CRC played was bringing together a huge coalition of groups across tendencies that don't usually work together to stop fascist groups from being able to organize here. We know that many of you are already activists and organizers and may understand the significance of this. But the left is not a monolith, and there are serious disagreements about how we win against fascism. And we want to underscore that when we say, excuse me, groups that don't usually work together, we mean groups that wouldn't come within a 5-mile radius of each other. Like, don't usually work together is a nice way of putting it. And yet, CRC successfully navigated those differences, finding the key point of connection, which is all being against fascism. And by the end of the summer in 2017, thousands of people, from anarchists to pastors, successfully confronted these fascists and made it clear that they were not welcome here in the Bay Area. This is a photo that you're seeing on your screen right now, just a section of the huge crowd that turned out on August 27th, 2017 in Berkeley. How many of y'all were there August 27th in Berkeley? Yep, right on. Awesome. How many of y'all, if you weren't in, if you aren't in the Bay Area, how many of y'all showed up for an anti-fascist protest or event in your area in 2017? In Charlottesville, right on. Sacramento, yep. Seattle, awesome. So here in the Bay Area, leading up to like that built CRC being critical to building that movement here, CRC organized, excuse me, y'all, my throat is not wanting to cooperate right now. CRC organized the first United Against Hate event at the Berkeley Jewish Community Center, bringing together an interfaith coalition and uniting that coalition with local anti-fascist groups. Also, CRC and CRCA began doing these teach-ins on white nationalism during that time. Today's webinar is actually our 7th iteration of this teach-in because we stay up to date because this movement is changing. Also, CRC's expertise with self-defense and safety has made them a critical leader in the anti-fascist movement. As racist intimidation, harassment, and terrorist attacks increased sharply after the election of Donald Trump, CRC provided bystander intervention and community defense trainings and supported targeted institutions like Black churches, mosques, synagogues, and immigrant-owned businesses with security support. These churches, mosques, and synagogues were actively being targeted by white nationalists. It was not just an idea, it was happening. Being hit with white nationalist propaganda in the form of graffiti, flyers, stickers, and also like receiving threatening messages. Some places were also dealing with white nationalist groups showing up in person at their places of business, like Reams, a Palestinian-owned and operated restaurant that was being targeted by Zionist groups, and Hasta Muerte, Black and Indigenous POC worker-owned co-op cafe here in Oakland, that after they publicly refused to serve cops in uniform, was a target of a fascist group called Patriot Prayer. Those are just two of many examples of when CRC provided critical on-the-ground security support and supported these and other organizations and groups, institutions to create the best safety plan possible. So we say all of this because we don't just talk about white nationalism, we actually have organized and directly confronted white nationalist groups for years. And we want to emphasize that studying and directly confronting these groups was critical to forging our politics. And it forced us to get clear on a few things. One, who the enemy is and who the enemy isn't. The enemy is a white nationalist. We are not each other's enemies. Number one. Two, there is no neutral. It doesn't exist. You're either anti-fascist or you're pro-fascist. Neutral is not possible. Three, every white person we're not willing to organize is someone that we're offering up to the white nationalist movement. They're organizing, they're willing to take folks. If we're not willing to organize white people, then we're saying, here, you can have them. We're contributing to their movement. And number four, when it comes to real safety, CRC's assertion that nothing will make us truly safe like a well-coordinated, competent mass. We can't rely on anyone else to keep us safe. Resourcing an organization like CRC to be able to keep training up hundreds of thousands of people on things like bystander intervention and self-defense is what's going to create a climate that makes it difficult for racist intimidation and harassment to happen. And we know that this is successful, and we also want to ground, like, there's going to be a lot of content you're about to hear today that's like depressing and discouraging. But also know this, something that Turha Ak, who is the founder of CRC, grounded us in at a vigil here in the Bay Area on May 18th after the Buffalo shooting, is that we're winning. We're actually winning. And in 2017, we experienced that win. We experienced a win. Thanks to CRC's leadership. Since 2017, despite the growth of the white nationalist movement, the well-trained, competent, and coordinated mass that CRC was critical in bringing together and providing with necessary skills like self-defense has successfully created such an environment where the Bay Area white nationalist groups have had to stay away and hide in the shadows. And that's a win. So as we get into this content, we want to start by grounding in our analysis of white nationalism and white supremacy. Now that y'all have a better picture of who we are, who CRC is, the leadership that we follow, now let's get into the content. So we know there are a lot of folks on this webinar today, which means that there are folks coming from across the spectrum of like political understanding. How many of you have been to an anti-racist training before? If you could put in the chat, I see some folks raising your hand. If you could respond in the chat, that'd be great. Awesome. Tons of yeses. That's great. Is there anyone, and be loud and proud about this, is there anyone who has not been to an anti-racist training before, for whom this is your first one? Awesome. Hell yeah. That's what's up. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. So if you don't yet know the real history of how the US began, we encourage you to do that study for yourself. It's really critical that you understand if you don't already. And we're not assuming, we just want to be clear. But we want to ground everyone today in the understanding that white nationalism and white supremacy are not a new phenomenon in this country. That in fact, America itself is a white nationalist project. America itself is a white nationalist project. Europeans came over here to create a nation state that was by them and for them. And in order to do that, They wiped out the original inhabitants of this land by systematically murdering millions of indigenous people and kidnapping and enslaving millions of African people, torturing them and their children for hundreds of years in the system of chattel slavery. Right? We know this, but somehow I think seem to forget it. And like the serious, just like the real heaviness and seriousness of it, and the real like roots of everything that we experience today. We want to be clear that European colonizers and enslavers were the original white nationalist movement. So this movement, this phenomenon is not new. And that although what it's looked like has changed, white nationalism and white supremacy have not gone anywhere. Every institution in the US is built to benefit white people, to maintain white dominance, white control, and white power. So when we look at the white nationalist movement, as we're about to, we have to understand that the mass shooters are just the tip of the iceberg, and that they are a product of this white nationalist project. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nicole.
Hey, everybody. Great to see so many people on this webinar. I really appreciate you guys making time to dig into this stuff with us. So let's get into it. The Great Replacement. This has been all over the headlines, and this is our topic today. The Great Replacement theory basically has two ideas, two parts to it. The first part is that due to increased immigration, Native-born Americans are losing economic, political, and cultural influence. And the second part is that this is no accident, that there's a group of people who are trying to replace Native-born Americans with immigrants for their own gain. Those are the two parts of this theory. And I'm curious if you guys have heard these ideas expressed, and I'm curious where you've heard them. The idea that Native-born Americans are losing economic, political, and cultural influence due to increased immigration, and the idea that there's a group of people that are doing this on purpose. All right, somebody's parents, somebody's heard it on the radio. People have heard it on Fox News, from family members. Some people have never heard about this. All right. So it's an idea that's familiar. These are ideas that are familiar to most of you. Let's talk about why we're talking about this today. Let's go to the next slide. We're talking about this today because 3 weeks ago, 10 Black people were murdered by an 18-year-old white nationalist who drove 3.5 hours to the only grocery store in a 78% Black neighborhood. And this young man live streamed himself murdering these 10 Black people, most of whom were elders, people shopping, people getting groceries. This attack was meticulously planned over the course of 6 months on a chat platform called Discord. This individual detailed online, he made this announcement that he was planning to carry out this attack in November. And then over the next 6 months, he detailed his trips to Walmart, to churches, malls, elementary schools with primarily Black attendees, before he ultimately landed on Top Supermarket in Buffalo. And he published a manifesto. He published this publicly on the internet 2 days prior to the attack. In the manifesto, he said that his intent was to terrorize, quote, terrorize all non-white, non-Christian people and get them to leave the country. In this manifesto, the shooter wrote extensively about the Great Replacement. He plagiarized heavily from manifestos of other white nationalist terrorists like the Christchurch shooter. And he wrote that he learned, quote, through infographics, shitposts, and memes that the white race is dying out, that Blacks are disproportionately killing whites, that the average Black takes $700,000 from taxpayers in their lifetime, and that the Jews and the elite were behind this. We are doomed by low birth rates and high rates of immigration. And then he carried out this terrorist attack the day after SNAP benefits were distributed, deliberately targeting low-income grocery shoppers, Black, elderly, and disabled people. Let's go to the next slide. So the Great Replacement theory was driving this attack. And he makes this very clear that this was a political attack. And then this poll came out from the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago. And this poll found that 1 in 3 American adults believe in the Great Replacement. 1 in 3 American adults believes that there's a group of people trying to replace native-born Americans with immigrants for political gain, and that due to increased immigration, native-born Americans are losing economic, political, and cultural influence. That's how the poll worded the beliefs of the Great Replacement theory. And it's interesting framing, right? Let's look at the framing for a second. So this framing centers immigrants as a threat. And there's kind of a colorblind nativism here, right? It's like native-born Americans versus non-native-born Americans. So it's not talking about whiteness and people of color, but it's kind of dog whistly, right? Like we kind of know what they're getting at. And then it's also like pretty vague. Like it's like there's a group of people who's doing this intentionally, who's behind this replacement happening, but it doesn't say who that group of people is. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Next slide, please. The Great Replacement theory is really just a rebranding of what became known as the white genocide theory. And they were smart to rebrand this, right? Because white genocide sounds stupid and ridiculous, because it is. But let's look at it. What does the white genocide theory say? According to the white genocide theory, white birth rates are too low. There are not enough white babies being born. And according to white genocide theory, this is happening because women are becoming feminists, young people are becoming queer and trans, and that feminism and rejection of cis heterosexual norms are like the secret plot to eliminate the white race. Second part of this theory is that non-white immigrants are a major threat, that non-white immigrants are being imported en masse to the United States and to white European countries in order to replace white workers, to displace white landowners, and to dilute white political and cultural power. And the third part of white genocide theory is that white people are under attack, that white people are being systematically targeted. And they talk about this in 2 ways. The first way they talk about it is that diversity is code for anti-white, and that anti-racist is code for anti-white. These people say that talking about racism and teaching about the actual history of the United States is a racist attack against white people and is designed to make white people hate themselves and make everybody hate white people. And it's an attack on the white community to talk about this history. The other way that this systematically targeted thing gets framed is that there's this crime wave, that there's a crime wave of non-white immigrants and of Black people who are attacking and murdering white people, and they're getting away with it because of the defund police movement and these soft on crime politicians. And this is part of this wave of genocide that's going to take white people out. This is the theory. And where did this theory come from? Like, let's dig into this a little bit more. Keep just peeling off the layers of this ugly onion. Next slide, please. This is a neo-Nazi theory, like plain and simple. The framing of white genocide and the kind of tenets of how this white genocide is supposedly happening, this came out of neo-Nazi groups and the KKK. And the theory centers on the idea that there's this secret cabal of Jewish elites who control the government, who control the economy, who control the media, And it's this secret group of all powerful Jews who are conspiring to commit genocide against the white race. This sounds like pretty fringe shit, right? Like, this is a pretty out there conspiracy theory. Let's keep going. Let's keep peeling. So let's talk about this white nationalist worldview and how it works. This evil cabal of powerful white traitors plays a very important function in the worldview. And that's because there has to be a way to reconcile the cognitive dissonance of the white supremacist belief that A, white people are superior, and that inherently Black people and people of color are inferior. That's like a core white supremacist belief, is that white people are like inherently better, stronger, faster, smarter, all the things. And that Black people and people of color are inferior, less intelligent, weaker, less moral, all this kind of stuff. So this is a key idea, white superiority. But then there's also this belief that white people are losing power and Black people and non-white immigrants are gaining it. So if white people are so superior, why are they losing in this battle, right? The function of the evil cabal of powerful white traitors is to reconcile that cognitive dissonance. So it's the explanation that it's a group of corrupt, evil, backwards, however you want to put it, white traitors who are behind the white genocide. It's this small group of white traitors who make it possible for Black people to advance themselves. Because from a white supremacist perspective, Black people aren't capable of advancing themselves on their own, right? There must be white people that are behind it. It's white traitors who are the brains behind the Black struggles for self-determination, like the civil rights movement. And it's interesting because like CRC often says that white supremacy has no ideological center, like it's incredibly adaptable and it'll kind of adapt however it needs to adapt politically in order to maintain its power. So the way that the evil cabal of powerful white traitors gets framed changes depending on who you ask and like what strategy they're using. So the neo-Nazi groups, they'll tell you that it's Jews that are behind this. But hardcore, just like more straight right-wingers that don't identify with Nazism, they'll tell you that it's Marxists. And then the men's rights activists will tell you that it's the feminists. And then the Tea Party and then eventually the Republican Party, they'll tell you that it's Democrats. So they can change up, they can put people into this role, but this role is important. And this whole thing is an absurd political myth. Like, look, like it's ridiculous. But why is this myth gaining traction? Why do 1 in 3 Americans believe that there's a secret group of people that are intentionally eroding the power of white people in the United States? Let's look at the data. Demographic changes are happening in the United States. The country is growing more diverse and less white. That's real. That's a real thing that's happening. 2020 census found that in the last 10 years, the Latino population has grown significantly, the Asian population has grown significantly, and the number of white people has declined a little bit, 8.6%. Let's look at the next slide. These statistics project that the United States will become a minority white country by 2045, which will be a first in several hundred years. So this is happening. What's happening is white people are no longer the like dominant numerical majority of people living in the United States. That trend is happening. But how we make sense of that demographic change really matters. Like it's not just like what this data shows, but like what we're making it mean and how we're understanding what it means. So let's go to the next slide. This is a little philosophical, but we gotta put it out there. What does white even mean? What does it mean to be white? What is the white race? Like, what is that? Think about it for yourself. If you're a white person, like, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to be white? We want to put forward that white is not a real race. Like, it's a socially constructed phenomenon. That doesn't mean that it's not real. Like, money is a social construct, but it totally structures our lives, right? It's like very, very real. But whiteness is socially constructed. It's less of a race in terms of like people actually having like a shared lineage and like culture and even genetics and stuff. It's more of a structural position of power. And we say that because like who has and has not been considered white has changed a lot over time. So it's never really been about like genetic percentages or like who people come from, like who's people. It's more about controlling populations and allocating the resources and benefits of citizenship. So like whiteness is more about politics and power than it is about like culture, heritage, all this kind of stuff. Let's go to the next slide, because this leads us to another important reality to ground ourselves in. White people have always been a minority on the planet. The idea of like white people not being the numerical majority is not new. We've always been a minority on the planet, numerically. That's always been the case. And so what we have to contend with and understand and make sense of and wrestle with is how have a minority of people on the planet dominated the planet so much? How has a small group of people numerically been able to monopolize wealth and land and power and political power, economic power, the power of being able to wield violence? How has such a small minority been able to monopolize all of that power on the planet? Because that's actually our history as like white people. Small group of people who've amassed a disproportionate amount of power. Next slide, please. We got to talk about the real replacement that actually happened in this country, the colonization and genocide of indigenous people. So white European settlers killed 56 million indigenous people across North, South, and Central America over a 100-year period. So in 100 years, 90% of the entire indigenous population was wiped out. That happened. And that was Europeans that came here and did that. So our analysis is that all of this fear and anxiety about white people being replaced is really a fear of retribution. Because historically, where we start to see the replacement theories start to come up is actually during the height of the chattel slavery era in the United States. So between 1830 and 1836, let's take Mississippi as an example. The number of enslaved African people in Mississippi grew from 65,000 to 164,000. So this population exploded, grew by 250% in 6 years. And this was the first time that Black people outnumbered white people in the state of Mississippi. By 1840, it was even more intense, 200,000 enslaved African people, 52% of the state's population, triple what that population had been 10 years earlier. And in that case, those demographic changes were a direct result of the slave market, of the slave economy. those demographic changes were a direct result of the forced hyper reproduction of African slaves that happened in Virginia, which considered itself a slave producing state, where then tens of thousands of these African slaves from places like Virginia and other places on the East Coast were forcibly migrated to states like Mississippi to work in the cotton fields. Also interesting to note that during this same time period, only 10% of white people in Mississippi owned slaves. It was only 10%. And so imagine how afraid they must have been about, like, what if the 90% of white people who didn't own slaves linked up with the 52% of the population that was enslaved? They'd really be in trouble, right? So what happened is during this time, we start to see rumors of a criminal conspiracy. There's a pamphlet that's created, it gets passed around. There's this rumor that there's a small group of white men that are plotting a slave insurrection, that are traveling around, that they're meeting with enslaved Africans, and they're getting ready to overthrow the slave owning class. And a ton of organizing happens in the white community around this conspiracy theory. They start to form vigilance committees. They start to hold makeshift trials where they kidnap people and then intimidated, beat them and tortured them into making confessions of guilt. They killed white people that they suspected were involved in this conspiracy, and they also executed a lot of enslaved Africans that they thought were a part of this. And so that's the first example we can find of replacement theory. It comes from this. It comes from this anxiety about being a minority. And, like, I mean, it's also important to note that as these demographics were shifting and as chattel slavery was evolving, like, more and more and more money was being made. All told, in 1836, the year where it kind of those demographics reached white people were a minority for the first time, there were $600 million that was made off of cotton produced by the million odd slaves in the US, which was about 6% of the total US population. $600 million of profit, almost half of all of the economic activity in the United States at that time. So there's a lot of money being made, but there's also this fear that comes with it, of like, oh, there's only a few of us, there's more of them than there are of us. There's a fear and a paranoia that comes from that. And we just see this as one long unbroken chain of that phenomenon happening over and over, and going through different iterations. So let's go to the next slide. So in the 1970s, 1980s, the KKK and neo-Nazi groups start using this theory about white genocide as an organizing tool. They start going into white communities, talking about this theory, talking about how white people are being wiped out, and they use this to recruit and to organize people. And we think that's what it's still being used for today. And we look at this in specific. There was a white nationalist organizer named David Lane who started with the KKK, and then he helped form a group called The Order, which was based on a book called The Turner Diaries, which was kind of a great replacement white genocide fantasy book. And so The Order was kind of a bunch of like cosplaying Nazis turned like rugged American heroes, and they were like robbing banks and distributing the money to white nationalist terrorist groups. They were stockpiling a lot of weapons. They killed a lot of people. David Lane ended up going to prison for murdering folks. And in prison, he became a really well-known white nationalist like thought leader from his prison cell. And he was one of the white nationalist leaders to really popularize the idea of leaderless resistance. So from his experience in the Order, he was like, you know, what would be when you form a group and you organize, it's easier for law enforcement to infiltrate that group, for anti-fascists to infiltrate that group. what's better is if white nationalists form one-man cells and just carry out these terrorist attacks one by one. That makes the movement a lot harder to identify, to organize against, to prevent, makes these attacks harder to prevent if it's just one person at a time planning their own little white nationalist terrorist attack. And so it's really important, like, we often see the media describe these white nationalist terrorist acts as lone wolf. And it's really important to know that, like, these white nationalist groups literally talked about creating lone wolves. It's not an accident. It's not like a mental health issue. It is an explicitly articulated political strategy of the white nationalist movement to have these lone wolves go out and do these things to try to advance their agenda. Let's go to the next slide. So how did the neo-Nazi white genocide theory become so mainstreamed? This new form of it, the Great Replacement, is really mainstream at this point. 1 in 3 adult Americans believes in it. How did that happen? 3 major tactics that we want to lift up. First is that they watered down the anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is real. It's a real thing. It's a problem. It's something that we have to deal with. And overt anti-Semitism is often a political turn off for white Americans, because people associate like hatred of Jews with the Nazis, and people associate the Nazis with being enemies of the United States. So like culturally in the US, it kind of plays better in Europe. It doesn't play as well here. And so we think that it's a very intentional strategy, that a lot of tendencies in the white nationalist movement have moved away from overt anti-Semitism. And that they start to get more vague. They'll talk about globalist elites, or they'll just talk about the Democrats or liberals or Marxists or whatever group they want to put in that role. And we think that this has been effective. We think that this has helped make the Great Replacement theory more palatable to more Americans. Second strategy that's been used to mainstream this idea is they've really intentionally targeted young people. So during the Trump era, the groups like Donors Capital, like the Koch brother network, they would fund grasstops groups, basically like fake grassroots groups at college campuses, to bring overtly white nationalist speakers to come to campus and talk about white genocide and the Great Replacement. And that was like a really clearly thought out strategy that did a lot of things. It did like bring these talking points up into the mainstream in a way that wasn't the case before. Even though often like the way that the media would cover those stories was more about like the controversy about the speakers, those speakers still got a lot of attention and they got heard by a lot of people. And then, you know, it stopped working after Charlottesville. Again, like I think the carrying the torches and chanting "Jews will not replace us" was a bad move strategically on their part. It turned the majority of the country against them. And so they shifted. So they stopped going to college campuses, and now they're all about like get them while they're young. They're really into this critical race theory debate, and trying to control how the history of this country is taught in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. And there's a long history of this tactic in the white nationalist movement. Back in the kind of second wave of the KKK in the early 20th century, the KKK had a women's brigade, and that women's brigade was really focused on public schools. And this is exactly, they did really similar stuff. They would take over the PTA, they would take over the school boards, and they would try to influence like how slavery and the Civil War were taught, to kind of try to protect the myth of white supremacy as much as they could. The third way that this ridiculous narrative has been mainstreamed is that they've really effectively weaponized the internet and saturated the media landscape. So white nationalists were really, they used to hang out on like the darkest corners of the internet, 8chan, private Discord servers, things like that. That's still happening. But they really were able to make a move, and they were able to kind of come out of those dark shadows and get onto huge platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and have disseminated like wild amounts of propaganda to huge audiences on those platforms. And so we all need to see these major tech platforms as like terrains of struggle. It's a real fight, like what kinds of like information and misinformation are allowed to spread on those platforms. I will say, as someone who's been studying the very violent white nationalist movement for several years now, I was really happy when I was doing research for this webinar and found that a lot of the old materials that I used to see on YouTube and Facebook were gone. That's a win. That's a good thing. But it's also kind of like too late. Like there's a whole generation of people, particularly of young white men, who've been impacted by this propaganda. And really, you know, organizations like Fox News are chasing that audience. They're trying to appeal to that audience to build their ratings. And that's something we have to contend with now. All right, I'm running out of time, so let's go to the next slide and let me try to get us through this. Thanks for bearing with me, everyone. All right, so white nationalism is all about control, right? It's anti-democratic. It's all about a very small minority, small numeric group of people having the maximum amount of control possible. And three of the things that they're most obsessed with controlling are land, reproduction, and guns. So let's run through this a little bit. First way, obviously, with land is we think about borders, right? That's a big thing for white nationalists. They're all about the border. They want a militarized border on the southern border of the US. Why? Because there's non-white immigrants on the other side of that border. They don't want that border in Canada because they're less concerned because they're white nationalists. It's about whiteness for them. So all of the calls for deportation and militarized borders and build the wall, that's a manifestation of the white nationalist movement. But I want us to look a little deeper and also turn the mirror on ourselves. I want to talk about private property, okay? All of the land in the United States was stolen. It was stolen from indigenous people. And that 56 million people that were killed. That's the amount of violence that it took in order to take control of that land. And now we have this private property regime that a lot of people make, actually not a lot of people, a small group of people make a lot of money out of. So yes, I'm talking about the corporate real estate industry. I'm talking about evictions. I'm talking about when low-income families get removed forcibly from their homes due to falling behind on rent during COVID, or for whatever reason. Like, that's a manifestation of white nationalism. We see it even in, you know, really progressive cities like Oakland, right? We have all, you know, neoliberal Democrats in power in California and in Oakland. And we have something called the encampment management policy here, where we have 6,000 people that are living on the street. 8 out of 10 of those people are African American. And then the city passed a policy that bans unhoused people from being on 95% of the land in the city. Basically consigns them to like a very like small area. That's a manifestation of white nationalism. Reproduction, I'm sure this has been on a lot of people's minds, as it should be. It's important to understand, this is a topic for like a whole nother webinar, but the history of the eugenics movement, which really started in the United States, the Nazis got most of their ideas about this whole master race thing from us, from middle and upper class white people in America. And that movement was all about controlling how reproduction happened, encouraging reproduction of like who they saw as like the good people, basically like purebred white people with money who are able-bodied. Like, there's a whole complex of things that they wanted to encourage. And then a massive forced sterilization campaign against indigenous people, Black people, poor people, people with disabilities. Manifestation of white nationalists control, needing to control how reproduction happens. Also saw this in the whole struggle against Jim Crow segregation. The most effective organizing tool that was used in the white community at the time to get people to oppose ending segregation was this fear of intermarriage and miscegenation. Like, your white daughter is going to marry a Black man and your grandchildren aren't going to be white. That was a really effective organizing tool that did something to people psychologically. Important to think about why that is, something to reflect on. And now we see, like, this shooter in Buffalo and many shooters before him have referenced that it's the birth rates, the white birth rates are too low. And this is where we see the right-wing attacks on bodily autonomy, the attacks on the right to abortion, the attacks on trans people. That's all about this anxiety about how there's not enough white babies being produced. All right, now we got to talk about guns. It's not a good situation, you guys. There's over 391 million guns already in the hands of civilians in the United States. And those guns are not like evenly distributed at all. 3% of the United States population now owns half of the country's firearms. So it's a very, very, very small number of people who have been stockpiling these weapons and who own half of the firearms that exist in the country. It's pretty scary. Like, think, like, who are those 3% people? There's a group called the 3%. They're a white nationalist paramilitary group. The American citizen who's most likely to own a gun is a white man, but not just any white man. According to a growing number of scientific studies, the kind of man who stockpiles weapons meets a very specific profile. These are men who are anxious about their ability to protect their families, insecure about their place in the job market, and, very important, they're beset by racial fears. They have this fear of retribution or fear of replacement, whatever you want to call it. They tend to be less educated. For the most part, they don't appear to be religious. And in fact, one study shows that having faith in something seems to reduce people's attachment to guns. Makes a lot of sense to me. But stockpiling guns seems to be a symptom of a deeper issue. And, we think that it is. We see people like Kyle Rittenhouse. He's a perfect example of kind of this profile of a gun stockpiler. Definitely a white nationalist, someone that showed up to a Black Lives Matter protest and murdered 2 people and got away with it. Like, the court system protected him. That's really important too. The court system, our law enforcement agencies, like, we can't skip over the whole history of the country and how those institutions came to be. If we do, we're going to be confused. We can't rely on those institutions to be against the white nationalist movement, because they're not. Like, there's a big overlap of, like, law enforcement community and the white nationalist movement. And so this bipartisan push that we've seen over the last 30 years to militarize police is contributing to this white nationalist monopoly on guns and weapons. And, look at the police response to the school shooting in Texas. That said a lot. It said a lot. That with all the weapons that they had, that they were handcuffing parents and preventing non-white immigrant parents from going in to save their kids rather than going in to stop the shooter. And there's really, really important conversations being had about, like, guns in this country and how they're regulated. And that's good. And, like, we want to emphasize with everybody, like, let's look really, really closely and really carefully about what some of the unintended consequences can be. And what are all the factors? Like, okay, if we pass really strong gun control legislation now, great. Then what's our strategy to get the 391 million firearms that are, like, in the hands of this really small group of people that are part of this white nationalist movement? We got to have that step in the plan, or our plan's not complete. We also know that, like, often laws that are passed, especially laws that criminalize people, really end up getting applied pretty narrowly. not on white people. So like California has passed some of the strongest gun control legislation in the country. And they did that after the Black Panthers demonstrated at the state capitol legally and openly carrying their firearms. So we know that when Black people have weapons, there's a big response to that, and there's a certain response to that. We know that the Buffalo shooter was taken alive despite being like super armed and like literally in the act of a massacre. So we have to think about how do we change the balance of forces, because right now this picture, it's definitely not stacked in the favor of peace and justice. Next slide, please. So we want to put forward that really the replacement theory is the unifying myth that's driving the right-wing political agenda right now. It's driving the hysteria about critical race theory. It's driving the hysteria around trans people. It's driving the attacks on bodily autonomy, the attacks on the right to abortion, the call for a militarized border. It's behind this whole Stop the Steal campaign that we saw after the last election. The idea that there's this widespread voter fraud and that white people are losing their like right to basically decide elections. And we also believe that it's driving this narrative of the crime wave, that there's this huge crime wave of like out of control Black criminals that are coming for white families and white businesses. And we need to invest more and more and more and more and more money in the police to put down this crime wave that's coming for white people. Kind of all makes sense now, right? That's the right wing. It's just racial anxiety and anti-Blackness, xenophobia, and a lot of other ugly things. Next slide, please. So where is this all taking us? Not to a good place. Not to a good place. This is an infographic of the mass shootings in the US just this year. I believe the darker the color, the more people whose lives were lost in shootings on that particular date. And I want to quote from an article from Political Research Associates. They are a think tank that studies the far right, specifically the white nationalist right. And we're going to post their research in the chat. You should check them out. They are a great resource. They wrote about the Buffalo shooting. We should understand these acts not as acts of individual hatred or pathological psychopathy, but as political violence in furtherance of supremacist cultural and political agendas. Characterizing the acts and the actors as outliers who can be brought to justice with American policing, courts, and national security apparatus denies the pervasiveness of bigoted and supremacist beliefs and relies upon systemically inequitable institutions to keep societally sanctioned supremacy and violence from getting too far out of hand. At this moment, this authoritarian coalition committed to replacing our shaky system of majority rule and minority rights with one of patriarchal white minority rule under an oligarchic one-party state continues to seize power. And these shootings are part of that strategy to seize power. They are designed to terrorize people. They are designed to make us feel afraid. They're designed to make me feel afraid to lead this webinar today, to wonder like, what will happen to me if I come out publicly and talk about this? That's the goal. And I think it's this tactic of these lone wolf mass shootings, it's effective in a way. And I see, I feel it in myself, like I really feel impacted by the shootings that have happened in the last month. And I notice myself like wrestling with what it means. And that's, you know, that's good. Wrestling is painful, but it's important. But I notice like amongst white people, there's kind of we get these little waves of like interest and concern. And they tend to be really driven by the media cycle and by things like mass shootings at elementary schools that we can relate to and that we feel like personally impacted and terrorized by. So I want to bring us all the way back. I want to go to the next slide. Remind us about the material conditions that Black people in this country live with every single day. Top supermarket in Buffalo. It's the only supermarket, only grocery store in this whole neighborhood. And it was actually a grocery store that the community organized for and fought for and won. There used to be no grocery stores in that area. And in 2003, the community won this grocery store. Like, that's important. And like, it matters that this is the place that he targeted, because it's not just the shootings. It's the food apartheid. It's the lack of access to housing, homelessness, lack of access to healthcare. Like, there's all these ways that structural racism from this long history of white nationalism in this country that come together. So that I know in Oakland, Black Oaklanders have a lifespan 15 years shorter than white people. I want to go next to the Buffalo Vigil that we held in Oakland. This vigil was organized by the Anti-Police Terror Project and Community Ready Corps. Let's go to the next slide, please. And it was really powerful. There were so many groups that came out, a lot of people that came out. It felt really good to be together after this awful act. So I really appreciate APTP and CRC for bringing people together in that way. It's really good organizing. And we want to share the speech that Terha Ak, the founder of Community Ready Corps, gave at the end of this event.
So I'm gonna follow my sister's lead. I'm gonna walk back over here, right? While she was still alive, someone used a knife to cut open the woman's abdomen. The infant fell from a womb to the ground and cried briefly, whereupon a member of the mob crushed the baby's head beneath his heel. I want to let that sit with y'all for a second. After the formal abolition of slavery, lynching emerged as a vicious tool of racial control to establish white supremacy and suppress Black civil rights. These lynchings were public acts of racial terrorism intended to instill fear in Black communities. Government officials frequently turned a blind eye or condoned this mob violence. I didn't even know what this was, and this was going to be here, right? This is nothing new. This is nothing new. From day one, this has been our relationship with white nationalism, with white supremacy. Replacement theory is nothing but fear of retribution theory. Replacement theory is nothing but fear of retribution theory. This is nothing new. Violence is an essential feature of white nationalism. When I say white nationalism, I'm not talking about the white boy who just shot down Black people, right? That's secondary and petty white nationalism. This is white nationalism.
Speak on it.
This is white nationalism. That flag flying right there is white nationalism.
That's right.
Be clear on that. It's important. that politically you understand what's happening. If you don't understand it, you cannot combat it. I never speak to do anything other than to organize. Never. This is nothing new. But I'm gonna tell you something else that ain't new. There are those of us who will walk through the fire, who will walk through the fire to get to your ass. There are those of us who are not looking for healing, we're looking for retribution. There are those of us that are not gonna do joyous dances. There are those of us that's gonna dance on your ass. Now, this is an important energy to bring to this space, right?
Right.
We can't have joy without organizing. We can't have healing without organizing. The world is as you make it. And that will keep happening until we make it stop. There are those of us who will walk through the fire. And there are more of us than you know. There are more of us than you know. They kill us because we're winning. They kill us because we're winning. I never speak to do anything other than organize. We are winning. We have to keep organizing. When we die, organize more. Organize more. Keep taking the streets. Keep letting folks know that we'll only say so much on this mic, but be clear, we are winning. I want you to go home with that. Be clear, we are winning. Keep organizing. Good night. So I'm gonna follow my sister.
So in order to keep winning, as Turhad just said, we need to put our values into action and get to work. We just spent a lot of time learning about the white nationalist movement and the Great Replacement theory, kind of diagnosing and identifying the problem. And now we're going to get into some solutions, some action. Because we were created by CRC and directly follow their leadership, we also don't speak to do anything other than to organize. So we're going to get into these 5 methods that CRC has given us as actionable steps that white people can be taking every day to win this fight against white nationalism. And we're going to put a link in the chat to the 5 methods principles, which you'll have available to reference after this webinar if you aren't already familiar with them. We're going to start with education, which is about building anti-racist consciousness. It's happening. We're doing it right now. In particular, we're leaning into the 3rd principle of the education method, which is developing a deeper understanding of our enemy, which is the white nationalist movement in all its forms. We also want to emphasize the 2nd principle, which is that study has its place, but nothing can replace observation and participation in real life struggles against oppression. So if you're not already in an organization, we encourage you to join an organization, to join the struggle, or start one. Start a group in your neighborhood, at your workplace, in your place of worship. Bring a few folks together. Bring them to watch the recording of this webinar that's going to be available on our Facebook page because we're live streaming right now. We're also going to be doing another webinar again later this month, which we'll speak to in a moment. But join the struggle, and keep educating yourself. We're excited that there are folks who are here for whom this is your first anti-racist training. We hope this won't be your last. And we hope that this will be the launch for you to get in the work for those of you who aren't already in an organization or doing work on the ground. And we want to invite you to continue your education work with us. We're going to be offering with the methods, ways that you can continue to plug in with the work that CRCA is doing if you so choose. We have what we call 5 Methods Mondays every month. They're the third Monday of every month. They're an hour on Zoom where we talk about the practice of the 5 methods and where folks can get support with your practice of the 5 methods in your life. So we hope you'll join us. Our next one is June 20th, Monday, June 20th. So in a little over 2 weeks. Also, if you work in the tech industry, we have a particular webinar for you. We hope that you'll join us at our upcoming 5 Methods webinar, where we'll go more deeply into each of the 5 methods and how they relate to your position as a tech worker. So if you're a white tech worker, join us for our upcoming 5 Methods webinar for tech workers on Wednesday, July 6th in the evening on Zoom. The next method is organization, and this one in particular is really important when we're talking about defeating the white nationalist movement, because organization is about bringing as many white people as possible into this anti-racist struggle so that we can win. And it's about being effective. You'll see on this slide, how many of y'all have heard of Moms for Housing? How many of y'all know about Moms for Housing? Right on. Awesome. We love Moms for Housing. We love the moms. And this is a photo of a very large group of folks outside of the house that these Black women and their children moved into in November 2019. One of Oakland's many vacant properties. And one thing they successfully did, one, besides winning the house, is highlight the contradiction that there actually is enough. There are 4 vacant units in Oakland for every 1 unhoused person. And as Nicole said earlier, 8 out of 10 unhoused folks in the Bay Area are Black. White nationalism, right? So when we talk about organization, we want to lift up a couple of these principles. And again, you can look at them in the 5 Methods Principles document that we've shared with you, and we'll share with you again as we go along. From individualism to collectivism. It's not enough to be the one special, quote unquote, good white person in the Black liberation movement. It's our job to bring white people along with us in numbers. So we have to identify the white people we can bring into this struggle, people who we can organize with and organize in, because we're clear who we're organizing against, right? We also want to lift up from separation to connection. I want to read this whole thing because this is so critical to our work. In order to organize other white people, we need to make the transition from focusing on how we are different or not like other white people to tapping into how we are exactly the same. This transition likely involves facing parts of ourselves that we don't like and getting real about our self-interest, not just our sense of morality or humanitarianism. We have to be able to set aside our judgments of white people and learn how to love them and ourselves. You can't effectively organize people you don't love. Now, there's a key difference between love and like. Effective organizing means we don't dictate our actions based on whether we like each other or like someone. Do we agree on anti-racism? Do we agree that white nationalism has got to go? Then great, let's do some work together. Good enough for us, right? It's about bringing in as many white people as possible. We have to love folks enough to not throw them away. Any white person we don't organize is someone we are offering to the white nationalist movement. That's it, there is no neutral here. And as Terha said, we're winning because organizing works. The fact that the white nationalist movement has had to change its strategy time and time again since the founding of this country means that the people are winning. And we need to keep organizing, keep expanding our numbers, and keep backing white nationalists, white nationalism into a corner until it has nowhere else to go. And we also would posit from our experience canvassing, which we'll talk about in a minute, is that more white people actually agree with us than we realize. We just have to find them. We just have to talk to them. And so that's why CRC has tasked CRCA with canvassing in white neighborhoods in Oakland to find those white folks who aren't already here in this webinar with us, in this movement with us, and bring them into this work. We're meeting folks where they're at, literally at their homes, and building our organizing skills while we're at it. Because it's a whole different ballgame to have a conversation with someone you don't know and who not only isn't expecting you, but is not expecting to have a conversation about racism. So we invite you to come canvass with us. We're actually having a canvass this Saturday, June 11th, starting at 9 a.m. in Oakland. If you're in the Bay, come canvass with us, seriously. Most folks are nervous about it, but it's an amazing experience and it will really bust your organizing chops, I promise. No prior experience is necessary because we train folks at the beginning of every canvass. It's a truly transformational experience, and we hope that y'all will join us if you're in the Bay or here in town. It's also COVID safe. We have COVID protocols. We'll be outside. We'll share all of that with you if you register. Also, we're excited to announce that there are about 85 of you on this webinar today. We had over 220 registrants, which we're stoked about. And so because of that, we're actually going to offer this same exact webinar again. This same webinar, we're going to offer it again on Saturday, June 25th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. Spread the word. Spread the word. And I want to ask y'all, because we're organizers, is who here will commit to organizing 3 white people in your life to attend this upcoming webinar? Who's willing to make that commitment? Hell yeah. On it. Love seeing that. Yep. So I'm pretty good at math. The chat's moving pretty fast. I'm going to just guesstimate that what just happened is at least, 60, 75 people should be showing up for sure to the next webinar based on those commitments. So we look forward to seeing those folks and hearing how they found out about this webinar is actually you. Amazing. Do the same for the canvas. Even if you're not in the Bay, spread the word. It seriously is, like, again, nothing replaces real life struggle, real life work against white supremacy, and Canvas is that real life work in person. Awesome. The third method, contribution, not control. Contribution, not control. This is about contributing what we've got, our labor, our skills, our time, basically all our non-monetary resources to this struggle. Want to highlight this not control part, and one key principle of contribution, not control, which is about regulating our nervous systems. Fascism exploits dysregulation and keeps people in a dysregulated place, driving them further and further into that hurt place until that's all there is for that person. They're like, oh, that's where you hurt. We're going to exploit that for our ends. And then that's all there is for that person. They just drive you into that deep dysregulation. And when we say this hurt place, it's a reference to Ruby Sales, who said that white people need to ask each other, where does it hurt? So that's what we're referencing there. We also know that dysregulated white people are violent and are vulnerable to being sucked in by white nationalism, whether we know it or not. As Nicole was talking about earlier, white nationalist propaganda has become so mainstream. I have actually heard white people in left spaces, like literally this year, recently, regurgitate white nationalist propaganda. when they're feeling afraid or anxious. I'm sure they don't realize that that's what it is, but that is what it is. And that fear and anxiety often comes up when we talk about Black self-determination, especially when we talk about divesting of power, divesting of money. We have to understand that white supremacy, white nationalism requires anti-Blackness. They're like two sides of the same coin. And we have all been conditioned this way. We've all been conditioned under white supremacy to be afraid of Black people and particularly Black power. And so it's on us to recognize and check that shit when it comes up in us. So bottom line is, regulating ourselves is actually revolutionary. So regulate our nervous systems. Intervention. Taking responsibility to prevent racist harm, either once it's already happening or before it happens. And that before it happens part is what we really want to talk about. We want to lift up the principle of prevention is the best intervention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We learn to become aware of what CRC calls pre-assault indicators and take proactive steps to address potential white supremacist threats. So the shooting in Buffalo, as Nicole outlined, was a calculated attack. It was planned. And there was a process of conditioning, largely online, before Peyton Gendron got to the point of planning that massacre. Before he even got to the point of planning it, there was conditioning that was happening. There are always pre-assault indicators. There are always points of intervention before something terrible happens. And we need to get better at paying attention and taking it upon ourselves as our responsibility to intervene. Let's not be bystanders, right? And not assume that someone else is going to. We need to observe our cousins, our nephews, our kids, our coworkers, our peers. And when we see them in any way getting sucked in by white nationalist propaganda, again, whether they know it or not, intervene. So to be as clear as possible, what we're saying is the best time to intervene with the Buffalo shooter was 10 years ago, was 5 years ago, was 2 years ago. The worst possible time to have to intervene was when he got out of his car and started mowing people down in that supermarket. So prevention is the best intervention. And ultimately, we need to practice all 5 of the methods. CRC gave us all 5 of the methods as an intervention in and of themselves against the system of white supremacy. I'm gonna hand it over to Nicole to start us off with the divestment.
All right. So this whole thing is about power, right? We talked a lot about power today. And money is a major form of power. So we got to talk about it. I want to lift up like the differences that we observe in how often like liberal, left, anti-racist, social justice type donors like to use money, and how we see white nationalist donors using their money. Social justice donors often want to give in a way that like provides relief, that provides immediate relief to people who are suffering because of these systems. And it's a great impulse. It's really, really important for people to be relieved, for people to be able to survive and live to fight another day. And what we see the white nationalist people with money doing is really investing in like rigging the game and in establishing and maintaining and consolidating power. And so what we kind of see happen is that there's like this endless cycle of like things get worse, like the kind of right-wing style of white nationalism continues to advance, conditions get worse and worse, and we continue to give money to try to provide some relief for those conditions. But the conditions keep getting worse. Like our giving isn't like stopping the conditions from happening in the first place. White nationalists invest in things like research and data development. You're probably wondering what this slide means. This slide is about the fact that John Kellogg, like Kellogg cereals, like the cereal guy, almost single-handedly funded the pseudoscientific research that popularized the eugenics movement in the 1920s. Like, he had this crackpot idea about eugenics and like the master race, and started funding like labs and studies and magazines and reports to popularize this idea. And the investment that he made in creating this pseudoscience and propagating it translated into like a change in material conditions, specifically that tens of thousands of Black and Indigenous people were sterilized during that time. We see white nationalists investing in things like think tanks, like the New Century Foundation, which is a white nationalist think tank. They publish reports like The Color of Crime that give the movement data that they can use to say that crime is an inherently Black phenomenon and an inherently anti-white phenomenon, and white people are innocent. There's all this bullshit. They publish magazines, they hold conferences where white nationalists can like network together, and they come up with 50, 100, 500-year plans. And then they work on those plans. And that's what we're seeing now, is like the result of white nationalist think tanks that have invested in these strategies over time. They've spent money on it. They also spend money on basically like buying the board, so to speak, rigging the game, and like buying politicians, buying political control. Someone in the Q&A asked a great question that I want to read because it's just thank you so much. It's the perfect segue. Somebody asked, if a minority of the US population owns guns, how is gun ownership so largely supported in policy and politics? How did white nationalists achieve that control over the gun conversation? Let's talk about it. Next slide. We want to use the NRA as a case study because the NRA is among the most influential advocacy groups in US politics. This organization has not lost a major legislative battle since 1994. So they're on like a 20, 30-year streak of winning, of like dictating their political will against the majority of the American public. How do they do this? They have huge influence over legislators' voting behavior through the financial resources that they wield and their ability to mobilize a large membership. So it's both. It's like organized money and organized people. That's really good at influencing politicians. In 2016, the NRA raised a record $366 million, and they spent $412 million for political activities. Keep in mind that the NRA also maintains a political action committee that's excluded from these figures. In 2015, NRA contributions came from 30,000 donors. That's less than 3% of the US population, right? It's like it doesn't take that many people. And the NRA claimed that around 90% of those donations were made by people who gave less than $200 a year. So, wow, there's so much to say about this and we don't have a ton of time, but I want to highlight two things. One is that you don't have to have a ton of money to make a difference if you organize. 30,000 people contributing $200 a year can create hundreds of millions of dollars in political capital to spend. So think about that. The other thing is, like we said with John Kellogg, if you do have a lot of money and we have a very extreme economic inequality in the world as a result of white nationalism and white supremacy, it's a problem. Most of the people that monopolize, like that have billions of dollars at their disposal, are white nationalists. So if you have billions, or if you have millions, or if you even have a couple 100,000 at your disposal and you're on this side of things, you need to get serious about divestment unless you like losing. That's just the reality. Let's go to the next slide. we want to share a little bit about our founder, Community Ready Corps, who created CRCA to organize white people to do what we're doing today, some of the work that they do in the Black community. Because honestly, like the first thing that I thought about when I saw the attack in Buffalo at the supermarket is I thought about CRC's grocery giveaway program. At the beginning of the pandemic, CRC was on the ground. They were passing out masks, hand sanitizers. They created pamphlets that were specifically geared to educating Black people about the coronavirus, dispelling some of the myths that were circulating at the time, myths like Black people can't get it, and educating people on how they could best protect themselves. And they went into the neighborhoods, the lowest income, the most highly concentrated, the places that were becoming COVID hotspots, and they gave out PPE, they gave out this education. And then because we had a shutdown in California, like a lot of people lost their jobs and were in really bad economic straits. So CRC started this grocery giveaway program where they went to grocery stores in low-income Black neighborhoods and literally bought tens of thousands of dollars in grocery gift cards and would give these gift cards out to low-income Black families every single weekend. And they continue to do that to this day. It's a really powerful program. It's enabled a lot of families to continue to be able to eat and take care of their health during this pandemic and during this recession. It's also supported the mostly immigrant-owned businesses that own these grocery stores in these communities to stay open. And we've gone through a lot of really depressing shit today. So we wanted to share this video that CRC took in the field one time that we really love. It's really touching. Just a little bit of background, they had just given out like hundreds of grocery gift cards, and they ran out of the cards. And then this 90-year-old woman came up and she didn't have any money for groceries. And this is what happened with the owner of the grocery store.
Hold on, I gotta go live with my people. Listen, hold on. I came out here. Listen,
hey, brothers,
man. Look at here. See, this why we really
appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Man,
this is what we're talking about.
And this why we come here.
Together.
This why we come here. Listen, we come out. We give out all the cards. My man, the sister come up. She 90 years old. He say, man, she can come in even though we ran out of cards and let her get all
Whether
the
we have cards or no cards, she can come anytime. We are here. We're in it together.
Man,
we have to help each other. That's what we're here for.
Man,
we really appreciate everybody in the community, and we are here, ShopRite, helping the community. Anybody have any time they need anything, we are here. Just come in, ask us for some help. We will help you.
Man, we appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Listen,
Thank you.
We come here to places that support us, to organizations that support us. This man, we ran out of cards. We ran out of cards. We were at the end. We gave them all away. Sister rolled up. She was 90 years old. I was going in to purchase some more just for her out of my own pocket. He said, nope. Anything she comes in the store and buys, we're going to cover it all. That's what I'm talking about, right? So we're going to Black-owned and Black-serving establishments. That man said, listen, ShopRite, the supermarket in East Oakland on Bancroft, right? Bancroft and Seminary, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's why we do this. I'm moved by that. We ran out of cards. We ran out of cards. The sister come up, she 90 years old. I'm about to go buy her some cards out of my pocket. He said, no, I'll take care of her. Whatever she comes in here and she buys from this point forward, we'll take care of her. Come on, man, we love y'all.
Y'all should know, since we're talking about white nationalism, a Facebook post that CRC made a few months ago, earlier in 2022, advertising an upcoming giveaway, an upcoming grocery giveaway, was flooded by white nationalist trolls, got attacked, targeted by white nationalists, getting thousands of racist, anti-Black, violent comments. And so we need to be clear that the work that CRC is doing is perceived as a threat by the white nationalist movement, and resources can help them keep them safe doing this work. So now we want to practice divestment together. As Nicole said, divestment is about power and shifting the imbalance of power away from white people and to the Black community. Divestment is at its most basic level about giving money with no strings attached and giving up decision-making power about what happens with it. How many of y'all think that it's the persistent reestablishment of white supremacy? How many of y'all think it's actually pretty racist to assume that we know what Black people need rather than they know what they need for themselves? How many of y'all think that that's the case? Put it in the chat if you agree with that. Yep. Yep, exactly. So seeing a lot of agreement, going to give you an opportunity to put that agreement into action and for you to divest to the Black Solidarity Fund. We're putting a link in the chat right now. So a few things you need to know about this fund. This fund is the first of its kind, completely created and operated by Black people. Money that goes into this fund is what allows CRC to do contribution work in the Black community. It also has allowed for CRC to give away thousands of dollars to other Black people and organizations doing work in their communities, including providing relief to Black businesses that have struggled during the pandemic and funding revolutionary and visionary Black organizing and power building. It's important to think of the Black Solidarity Fund really serving as a foundation, a center from which money gets dispersed throughout the Black community and decisions are made by Black people. White people are out of the picture. It's an amazing thing. And it's not just here in the Bay Area, but it's across the country. The Black Solidarity Fund has reached places like New York, Chicago, Louisiana, Ohio, the Pacific Northwest. The Black Solidarity Fund already has a pretty big reach across this country. And the Black Solidarity Fund and divestment really go together as two parts of the same strategy to move that money and power from the white community to the Black community to address the unequal and oppressive concentration of wealth held by white people. Because again, the material conditions for Black people are already dire because white nationalism keeps resources concentrated in white communities and starves out Black communities literally and figuratively. Just like the supermarket in Buffalo, the Black neighborhood was a total food desert with no grocery store until the community organized and won a store in 2003, and then it became a target for white nationalists. So seeing a bit of like CRC's impact, just a glimpse into like a minutia of CRC's impact on the community, let's imagine the impact they could have in the Black community across the country if they had the kind of resources the NRA has. Imagine the reach, the possibilities to scale the model they've already built successfully here in the Bay. Imagine Black self-determination being a reality and white nationalism crumbling into oblivion. Just gone, obliterated. Resources are the key to make that happen. If we do not divest of our resources, then we are continuing to keep our power and control in the way of Black self-determination, period, point blank. So again, want to encourage y'all to put those values, those shared values that I saw that y'all have with me, with us, into action. And I want you to think about the number that you're thinking to divest to the Black Solidarity Fund, whether one time or on a monthly basis, or maybe that you've already made your divestment while I was talking. And I want to challenge you, because this is a cross-class space, to increase your divestment, particularly if you have access to wealth. So for example, if you're expecting inherited wealth, if you own property, if you have no debt, or if you make a six-figure salary, I want to encourage you to double or even add a zero to your number. I'm serious. I want to encourage you to double or even add a zero to your number. And if that causes you some discomfort, I want you to lean into that. Because that discomfort zone is where we need to get comfortable if we're going to do anti-racist work. Because comfort for white people means the status quo. We're supposed to be comfortable with all of this. But what I'm seeing from y'all and what I feel in myself is that I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with white nationalism. I'm not comfortable with the concentration of power being hoarded by white people. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with the material conditions that Black people are living in on a daily basis. So I am okay with being uncomfortable with giving my money away. I'm okay with that, and I'm going to do it anyway. I'm okay with being uncomfortable to show up to Canvas and knock on someone's door and talk to them about anti-racism. I'm okay with that. And so I ask y'all to be okay with that and to lean into that discomfort and make your divestment. I want to see in the chat who is divesting today. Who's going to put your values into action and divest? I'm seeing some responses in the chat. Hell yeah. Awesome. Yes, yes. Me, exclamation point, exclamation point. I love it. Yes. That's what we're looking for. Telling my family members too, that's right, practice some organization. Hell yeah. I'm ready. That's what's up. If you are excited about the concept of divestment, or if divestment scares you a little bit, but you want to lean into it, and you are a white person with wealth or access to wealthy networks, we are excited to offer a deeper dive into divestment in July. A 2-part training, 6 hours a day with breaks and all that good stuff on Zoom, July 17th and 24th. It's the first time we're offering this. We're excited to be able to share it with y'all today. We encourage you to register for this training and also spread the word to other white wealthy folks that you know. And why are we particularly saying white wealthy folks? Well, because if you have wealth, you have a particular responsibility to divest. All white people can absolutely divest. And if you have wealth, you have a particular responsibility to divest it. So we hope to see you July 17th and 24th at our 2-part training. Yeah, a month and a half from now. Let's get even deeper into this practice. Right on. So we've said a lot of ways to plug in with CRCA. There were a lot of links that were shared, a lot of actionable items. We put it all in one document for you. 1 page, all the ways to plug in with CRCA. Megan just put it in the chat. Thank you, Megan. One thing that you'll see in that document that we haven't yet named, another way you can contribute to CRC's critical community giveaway work is to show up and help make the kits that they give away, PPE kits, grocery kits, hygiene kits. They give away these each week. The information on the weekly shifts is in that document and how to sign up. We have shifts every week in Oakland, Wednesdays, 6 to 8 p.m. and Sundays, 10 a.m. to noon. And we follow strict COVID safety protocols and have been per CRC's leadership since the pandemic started. So we hope to see y'all there if you're in the Bay Area. We hope to see y'all at a Canvas. We hope to see y'all at the Tech 5 Methods webinar. We hope to see y'all at the divestment training in July, the 5 Methods Monday. Lots of ways to engage with us. Hell yeah. Yeah, come join all the things. Exactly. Yeah, that's basically what we're saying. So we are running a little out of time. We're gonna put in the chat a link for you to give us some feedback. Like we mentioned earlier, we believe that direct feedback is a gift. So please take a few minutes to share your feedback with us. While that's happening, we'll have about 3 minutes to answer just a few questions. Then we'll answer what we can to the best of our ability. If you have any lingering questions, feel free to reach out to us by email. You'll also be added to our weekly email list because you registered for this webinar. So Nicole, take it away for the next few minutes and then we'll close out.
Thanks, Katie. That's my comrade. She's a badass. All right. Sorry we don't have time for all the questions. I want to speak to Matthew's question about what are good ways to fight pessimism toward change. It feels all well and good to observe and circulate that there's problems. How do you personally suggest fighting the idea that these issues are too massive to fight? I know that many people are pessimistic and lose energy when thinking about actual change happening. How, as activists, do we keep going? Good question, Matthew. I mean, I think it's important to keep perspective on how long, my cat wants to get on this, on how long this arc of history is. And my honest personal answer to this question is that we do have to win. Like, we have to defeat defeatism. And the way to do that is by actually winning shit. And what I want to say to white anti-racists about this is, like, we often spend a lot of time in webinars like this. And we spend time reading the books, reading the articles, listening to the podcasts. Maybe we get in a group and we talk about the book or we talk about the podcast, and that's cool. But we have to get to work. Like, we have to actually, like, throw down and put our shoulder to the wheel and really, like, throw our power and our privilege in service and, like, behind amazing Black leaders like Community Ready Corps, so that they can win shit. That's what keeps me in this, is that we actually win stuff, and I do see change happening. And so if you struggle with the pessimism, I really encourage you to actually plug in concretely to CRCA or to another organization where you are that's doing stuff. But yeah, we have to win stuff or we will give up. There's a question about an effort to not give voice, like to not platform names of mass shooters and terrorists. How do we address this while also trying to shed light on white nationalism? I mean, I'm curious, please share your feedback with us in the feedback form, how you thought we did with this today. We tried to really not focus on any of these individuals and really just focus on the strategies and the tactics that are being used. You know, back in 2017, one of the campaigns we did was a Know Your Nazi campaign. And we did lift up specific names, their faces, with the goal of, like, preventing these people from being served at Bay Area establishments, and, like, really calling out that these are people that have violent and racist intentions for being in our communities, and that they are not welcome here. So when we had a really specific reason and it was a way to organize, we did lift up people's names, but today we did not. And that's all the time we have for questions, but see you at 5 Methods Monday.
Oh yeah, thanks, Nicole. So yeah, we want to hear your feedback. If you are currently filling out the feedback form, Megan, if you could share it in the chat again, that'd be great. Please share your feedback with us. Seriously, we literally look at every piece of feedback that we get. We do. So we appreciate that feedback. Megan, if you could also share in the chat again the link to the page, which with all the ways to plug in with CRCA, has the information for how you can get plugged in with kit making. It's in that document. That 1-page document has everything about how to get plugged in. So that's the end of the webinar today. We hope to see y'all again. Before you hop off, please share with us one thing that you're taking away from today's webinar. One thing that you're taking away from today's webinar. Share in the chat. One thing you're taking away. We have to win. Renewed hope and resolve. We love to hear it. Just posted to Facebook. Thank you for your hard work. I feel less overwhelmed. That's awesome. We have to win shit. Yep. That we have the power to defeat white nationalism and we're winning. Taking away fire. Love it. Support Black leaders. White nationalism is slippery by design. Yet the lone wolf, one man sells an intentional strategy of white nationalism, super important. I am not different from other white people. Self-regulation. There's always work to do. Yeah. A much deeper history than we usually talk about. Absolutely. Yep. Takes money. Get my friends to contribute to the good guys and we will win shit. Hell yeah. This is great, y'all. This is energizing to even read. I gotta be honest. Motivated to organize more in my neighborhood and community. I can't even keep up with all the chat messages. Hell yeah. It can take time to get comfortable with all the 5 methods, but I'm getting there. Stay in it with us. Come to 5 Methods Monday. Come to all the things. That's right. Organize, organize, organize. Thanks, everyone. Take care of yourselves. We're in this for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We hope to see you soon.